This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But it's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI's not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. Their clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. They offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions that isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will find that their mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the healthcare they deserve. Because they believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized, insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
Yay Networks.
All right, spoiler alert. There's not a potato chip or corn chip that looks and feels and tastes just like a potato chip or corn chip and gives us all the nutritional benefits of veggies. Sorry, y'all, there's just not. But on the flip side, there's a lot out there that look like they're super healthy for us, and also they're not. There's a bunch, though, that are sort of in between. They're better, that give us some good nutritional benefits. And then there are some really solid veggie chips that we truly can feel better about eating. A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter, and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. This episode is dropping the Thursday right before the 4th of July holidays, so a lot of y'all might be taking road trips. You may be having pool parties. Hopefully some of y'all are getting to hang out at the beach. And all of those things often are centered on snacks. What snacks we're going to pack, what are going to have out there. And a lot of times, some of our favorites, my favorites, are things like salty, crunchy potato chips. And even if you're listening to this at any time or you're not going anywhere for the 4th of July, this is still a topic that I get questions about a lot anyway. And specifically veggie chips is what we're going to be looking at today. I get questions about just in general, are these chips any better than others? You know, fill in the blank XYZ brand, is this any better than others? And then there's something that happens with kids that there's some different types of veggie chips that people will put in their kids' lunch or have little snack packs of that for their kids to have. And we feel like that's a better option. Oh, but they're veggie chips. It's better than if we're just giving them, regular, Lay's potato chips or something. But is it really? So that's what we're talking about today, y'all. We'll be talking about sort of the breakdown of these different types of chips, the, quote, healthier chips that are really maybe not much better than a regular potato chip, then some alternatives to those potato chips or kind of cheese puff type chips that are still typically, I'm seeing, they're crowd pleasers. And then we'll wrap with if you actually, but I'll say those first two categories, they're not really giving us a dose of vegetables. And so we can't fool ourselves on that. And we'll talk about why and all that, but they're still better for you potato type chips or cheese puffs or kind of Cheetos type things. But they're far from actually saying you're getting a serving of vegetables. And then finally, we'll be talking about some veggie chips that are actually giving us that dose of vegetables. It may not be, it may be close to maybe a serving. So it's certainly not going to, fill your day's needs or anything like that. But it is something that we truly can feel good about. And it actually is truly a veggie-based chip. So y'all are going to hear a lot of packages rattling throughout this podcast because I'm surrounded by bags and bags of veggie chips so that I can look at them and turn the labels over. I've also got more on my phone from recent trips to different stores. A lot of these chips that we'll talk about, you'll find them in kind of like natural food stores like Whole Foods. Some of our local grocery stores, you'll find them on sort of their healthy section, kind of the organic-y or healthy section separate from the regular chips. That's often where a lot of mainstream grocery stores put them, which disappoints me because if you're going and you're searching for chips and these healthier chips were also right next to the regular chips, we could be more likely to maybe see them or want to try them. But when they're in a whole separate section with other like quote healthy foods, like maybe that's where they put the healthier versions of like nut butters or everything else. What if you're not even going down that aisle? Then you're going to miss them entirely. So just know that at some of your local stores, you may find them kind of in those specialty, healthy, organic-y type aisles. At a place like a Whole Foods, they're right there on like the regular chip aisle. You'll find versions of these at Target. You'll find some of these that we'll talk about at Whole Foods. What I'll say about all of these is as we talk about them, if you hear something that interests you, just do a quick Google search. When you pull up the website for the products, every single one of them has a store finder feature so that you can see like which places near you do carry it. So I've shared with y'all, I don't even know how many times I've talked about this product on this podcast, but probably my favorite chip is the pink Himalayan sea salt by the Kettle brand chips. And I only find it at Costco. I can't find a regular smaller bag. It's only at Costco. And I'm holding it right now to share it and look at the bag. It's unopened as of right now. It is heavy to just hold as far as a bag of chips goes. It's 2 pounds. It's a 2-pound bag. But I brought this out just to kind of look at it and just talk through the ingredients. So for regular chips, like a regular potato chip, it is still really basic ingredients. So potatoes, some type of an oil, and then salt. So in this case, it's just potatoes. It has a couple of different types of oils, and it has that pink Himalayan sea salt. It's very straightforward. So when we're talking about chips and we talk about the kind of that salty crunch, if you've just got a basic, simple, straightforward chip like that, there's really not much wrong with that. You could argue, okay, the different types of oils matter, and they do. But if you're still, it's a potato chip, y'all, but there's different brands, there's the Canyon, Boulder Canyon brand. I don't have that one in front of me, but it's, I think they make them with avocado oil. So you'll see different, just regular white potato chips with avocado oil or other kind of like healthier oils. They're still just potato chips though. But when we look at these, just to kind of put it in context, a serving is, on almost all of these products, a serving is listed as an ounce. And that ounce of chips, it varies on how much you get for that ounce. So these particular chips that I keep talking about, they're really thick and they're kind of that crinkle cut. They're thick and they're big. So it's really only about 9 chips that you get for that ounce. Other types of chips, I'm going to look at some of these little healthier versions of puffs that I'll be talking about in a minute. 20 pieces you get. So when we talk about an ounce, that's usually what you're going to see on the label. And then how much you get for that ounce varies. Very few people are going to weigh out their chips to see what that ounce is, nor would I want anyone to. But just be, so when we're talking about that and we talk about the nutrition facts that I'll be sharing, I won't say it every time we're referencing an ounce. The amount you get for that ounce is gonna change. There are a few that I may have. Yeah, actually, no, I think they're almost all about an ounce. Let's talk about our sponsor for this week's episode, HelloFresh. And you're going to want to hear all of these details because this summer, HelloFresh is giving you 16 free meals. They also are giving you free shipping. That's 16 free meals. HelloFresh makes it easier than ever to cook at home. You've got that home prepped meal with the ingredients ready for you, the instructions ready for you, and it helps to keep things nutritious. You get the fresh, pre-measured ingredients. You get the recipes, chef-crafted recipes delivered right to your door. So you can turn your wellness goals into realities with HelloFresh plans like Protein Smart, which is centered on protein and veggies, or vegetarian or pescatarian options each week. You'll get farm-to-table quality with every box. HelloFresh's seasonal ingredients are picked at peak ripeness. They travel from the farm to your doorstep in less than 7 days. If you've tried and loved the Green Chef Organic Meal Kit Company, you'll love to know that Green Chef is now part of HelloFresh. And our listeners can use our promo code for a discount on both brands. HelloFresh and Green Chef, they're both such time savers. Plus, it automatically adds that bit of variety into ordinary weeknight meals. We have loved every dish that we've tried. Go to HelloFresh.com/fueled16 and use promo code fueled16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/fueled16. Use promo code fueled16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping from HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. So if you look at just regular potato chips, these sea salt kettle chips that I'm always talking about, a 1 ounce standard serving of these has about 150 calories. So it's not, it's not wildly high there. The sodium's actually really moderate, just over 110 milligrams of sodium. The carbs are 15 grams of carbs. To put that in perspective, also, a slice of just normal grainy bread has about 15 grams of carbs. So 15 grams of carb is considered, quote, a serving. The fiber in these, surprisingly, even though they're just a white potato chip, is 2 grams of fiber. And then 2 grams of protein, really low, like an egg or an ounce of meat is 7 grams of protein. So 7 grams of protein is an egg or an ounce of meat. So 2 grams of protein is really low. So I kind of say that as a reference point to talk about the others moving forward. So regular serving of just regular potato chips, 15 grams of carbs, 2 of that's fiber. So again, not wildly high, but are we stopping at just a nine chip serving, 1 ounce serving? But that's the case with any of these too. So 15 grams of carbs, 2 fiber, 2 protein. The sodium is pretty decent in check. With these, if someone, and I'm not going to apologize every time, but y'all are going to hear crinkles through this whole episode. That's really moderate. It's a moderate amount of carbohydrate. It's, like I said, it's still white potato. It's a white potato chip, but it's moderate there. Many of the other chips that we see that are marketed to us, and this is where we get into the ones that, okay, these look like they're healthier, but are they really that much better? There is a chip and it's, the packaging looks very natural. It's from a company called From the Ground Up. They are cauliflower tortilla chips. They have grain-free right across the top of it. And, just the plain sea salt version of those, also 140 calories for that ounce. So right at, 10 calories less than those kettle chips we were talking about. The total carbs, 19, so a little bit higher. So immediately when I looked at that, I was like, well, clearly there's not a lot of cauliflower in these chips, because if there were, they would actually be a really low carb product. But in fact, ounce for ounce, these cauliflower chips have more carb than my regular sea salt kettle chips. And the fiber is the same, 2 grams. So what's marketed to us as healthier of these cauliflower tortilla chips, we would easily grab these. They've got little chia seeds on them, so they look like they're really healthy. We also see they have like a vegetable blend of like spinach, broccoli, and all types of veg through there. There's clearly not that much of it though, because they're so still kind of like that neutral yellowy color of a chip. So we've got more carbs and about the same amount of fiber and a notch less protein than the regular sea salt chips. So when you look at those ingredients, that from the ground up cauliflower tortilla chips, the first ingredient is I actually hear this pronounced 2 ways, cassava flour, or I think it's cassava flour. So we're just going to say it this way, but cassava flour, which is a starchy, it's a starchy root vegetable. So something like cassava flour, when we see that on there, it is grain-free. It is gluten-free, but it's still a very carbohydrate-dense, starchy flour. And so something like this, marketed as these cauliflower tortilla chips, the first ingredient, cassava flour, then sunflower oil, then cauliflower. So it's really still a starchy flour-based chip with some cauliflower, some chia seeds, and some of these other things. So is it a bad product? No, not at all. But is it something that we would say like, oh, wow, like you're eating your vegetables this way? Not at all either. Same thing goes with these veggie chips or veggie straws. There's a brand called Sensible Portions, and you've probably seen it. It has kind of the colorful looking vegetables they show, or chips they show you with like the orange, the yellow, the green. They have the straws or they have the regular type chips on the package. The first ingredient, and then like they advertise, they call them garden veggie straws, non-GMO and all that stuff. And they have pictures of the vegetables all on the cover of the front label. But when we look at it, same thing here, a 1 ounce serving, 17 grams of carbs, 0 fiber. So a little bit more carbs and 2 grams less fiber than those sea salt kettle chips. The very first ingredient, potato starch, potato flour, and then different types of oil. And they have powders in them. So a little spinach powder, some beetroot powder, a little tomato paste. They're colored with vegetable extracts, but they're by no means veggie chips giving us a serving of vegetables. And these are the ones that I see most people with kids, and the kids are eating these colorful chips, and it's as if they think they're getting, or some do think, but they're veggie chips. They're at least getting some vegetables in here. The only vegetable they're really getting any significant amount of is potatoes. So again, potato starch, potato flour, first ingredients, and then oil, and then cornstarch, and then sugar, and then salt, more of a potassium chloride. All of those ingredients are first before there's the spinach powder, the tomato paste, the beetroot. So there's basically more cornstarch, sugar, and salt in these than there is any vegetables. So is that to say these are bad? They're not bad at all. They're all fine, decent ingredients in here. That potassium chloride is basically a low salt alternative. So sodium chloride is salt. Potassium chloride is what you'll often see in like a low or a no salt seasoning blend. So none of these ingredients are bad by any means. If you like them and you're having them just because you enjoy them, roll with it. But if you're having them because you think that you're doing something better or healthier with these, we're not. The same goes with the Terra chips. You'll see those, they kind of look like fancy. They're in a black bag and they have different colored chips. They have like beets and yucca and all these other things in here, taro. So with these, actually parsnips, I don't believe it's yucca, but taro, sweet potatoes, parsnips, some beets, but they are all different types of root vegetables. They're fried just like a regular chip would be. They have spices, seasonings. Same thing here, 16 grams of carbs, 2 fiber, 1 protein, really similar nutrition facts as those sea salt kettle chips. The difference here is we do have a little bit more nutrients, I guess you would say, because they do have the sweet potatoes or the beets. So you're going to get, a little bit more, but it's still really insignificant as far as like any nutritional value that these chips are adding above and beyond regular chips. So that's enough of like, we're going to switch to the positives after this, but I wanted to just share with y'all some of these that we're seeing, we're reaching for, we think we're doing a better thing, and they're fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them, but don't fool ourselves that we're having something that is nourishing, it's nutritious, it's giving us our vegetables, it's anything like that. It's just chips, y'all. And so for me, all those other products that we talked about, I like them okay. They're fine, but I really like those other chips better. So when I really want that salty crunch of like a real chip, I'm going to go ahead and do that regular kettle chip with, the waffle, the crinkle cut and that thick cut. Like I'm going to enjoy those and savor those because that's what I like best. Those others, they're fine, but they're not really significantly better. So when we switch to, okay, well, what are some that are a notch better? The next 3 that I'm going to talk about, these are some that I think we could call, kind of was like, well, these aren't really veggie chips, but actually they kind of are, because when we talk about, veggie chips would be anything, those others that we talked about also weren't really, they're more potato starch and all that stuff, that other starchy flour, cassava flour. There's a few that they have other types of plant-based proteins or flours that I'll share with y'all. And the numbers on them, the fiber or the protein's a little bit better, or they have just a little bit less refined starch in them. So deciding which order I want to share with y'all. I think the first I'm going to share with y'all, there's a chip called High-Low, and it's like High-Low Life. I shared this a few weeks ago on like top Costco finds, and this High-Low chip is, the primary ingredient is almond flour, which we could argue, is it a vegetable? No, but it's still plant-based. But what they also have in here is pea protein. And so the protein in them is boosted because of the pea protein, and then also chia protein. They do still have some potato starch, but when we look at what a serving of these gives us, there's other chips we talked about, the sea salt chips, 15. Some of the others we just looked at were anywhere from 15 to 19 grams per, serving of carb. These have 5, and they have 2 grams of fiber. So same fiber as those kettle chips we talked about, but only 5 grams carb, 2 grams fiber. You can also subtract that fiber from your total carbs, and it gives you what we call net carbs, because that fiber is not digested and absorbed. Doesn't really matter if we're talking about something that's like 15 or 19, if you're going to subtract 1 or 2 grams of carbs. But when we look at something that's only 5 grams of carbs and 2 of that's fiber, then we would say, all right, well, this is 3 grams net carbs in these. The sodium is still moderate. It's just over 200, so more than the others we talked about, but still moderate. And the protein is 9. So those others we talked about have about 2 grams of protein, which that frame of reference that an egg or an ounce of meat is about 7. And this high low chip, they have 9 grams of protein. So only 3 net carbs, 9 grams of protein. And the ingredients are almond flour, and then the ingredients vary depending on what flavor you get, but pea protein, shea protein. So I think this is the one that I've tried from Costco is the nacho cheese, but I looked at their website and they have a lot of different flavor varieties. Well, not a lot. I want to say it's like 3 or 4. I was looking for one that might be just a sea salt, which doesn't look like they have that yet, or at least I didn't see it yet. So check out their website, see what I'm talking about here. The nacho cheese one to me is kind of a decent substitute for a Dorito. So not really a veggie chip in that kale or these others that we'll be talking about in a bit, but still all plant-based chip and giving us a good decent bit of fiber there. There's another brand I want to share with y'all. It's called I1 and it's IWON. And they have several different varieties of chips, but the two that I'll talk with y'all about, they have something called protein sticks, STIX, which may not sound, you're like, well, protein stick, but the texture of it is sort of like a Cheeto, I would say, versus not so much a cheese puff, but like kind of the more denser, crunchier Cheetos. And for that 1 ounce serving, it's 120 calories, 14 carbs, 3 fiber, so about 11 net carbs and 7 protein. So really solid there. And it's the protein blend is green peas, navy beans. It's got brown rice protein. And then all the different seasonings or flavors based on kind of whatever flavor you get. These are something that I see in a variety of different types of stores. Also, stores like supplement stores. We sell them at Oshner Fitness Center. You can get them in the bag that's like a full-size bag, like a little 5-ounce bag, or you can get them in the single servings, and they have different variety packs available and stuff like that. The same company, I1, they have the protein 6, and then they also have one that's sort of a cheese puff type texture, and the flavors vary like nacho cheese, cheddar cheese, mesquite barbecue. They have one that's like a caramelized onion, so all different types there. So the high-low chip is one that I like. That's a high protein kind of a chip, like a Dorito style chip. Then there's the Cheetos or the cheese puffs by that brand I1 that have about 7 grams of protein per serving. Another that you'll see, and I'm even starting to see these in like vending machines or kind of like convenience stores, like when they're placing foods that they're trying to have healthier options available. I'm seeing this put into those types of areas. And the brand is Hippeas, HIPPEAS, and they're little chickpea puffs, and they are sort of also that cheese puff texture. The white cheddar, they happen to be vegan, so it's a vegan white cheddar. They actually have these in little snack size bags, and we gave these out at Halloween. And if y'all have ever listened to the Halloween podcast, we do non-candy Halloween here. And so a lot of toys, tattoos, bounce balls, glow in the dark vampire teeth, stuff that's like still really inexpensive that you can get at a place, like Target. And it's different, it's unique, it's interesting for the kids. But then I'll also, if I see something like this, that you can buy in bulk in the smaller snack packs, I'll do that as well. So these we gave out, and I think that they were well received. The toys, absolutely. For me, I like white cheddar flavor of things, and these, have been a home run with me and anyone who have had try them. The high-low chips that we say are like a Dorito, just know, of course, they're not exactly like a Dorito. These, the I1 little Cheeto style or cheese puff styles, they're not exactly, but they're similar. So kind of just go into it with an open mind. I would say the same thing on the Hippeas here. So for an ounce, it's about 19 carb, 3 fiber, for protein. So a little bit less, a little bit more carb and less protein than something like the I-1, but they are more widely available. So kind of that rundown of there's regular old chips. I didn't mention this, but corn chips, or like tortilla type chips, corn chips. The nutritionals are often very, very similar to what we talked about on those potato chips. The biggest difference being obviously corn versus potato being used there. Both of those still are naturally gluten free. They're both still a primarily starch, and then a couple of grams of fiber. So I went straight into potato chips, but we could really, if we had something like a corn chip, it would be pretty similar stats to what we talked about with the potato chip. So last thing, or kind of moving on, I guess, to okay, well, what are some of the better chip options? Think through, one that I want to mention is beanitos and also bean fields. These are chips that I used to see around a lot, and they're made with white beans or black beans, and they have more fiber, more protein, as you would think. Many of them still do have some rice flour, but they are primarily like made with a bean flour. So more fiber, more protein. If you see those, they are definitely a really good option. Kind of in that usually 3 or 4 grams of fiber and usually about 4 or 5 grams of protein. I haven't seen them as much on shelves lately. Beanitos I saw for years, and then I started seeing the brand Bean Fields more than Beanitos. And lately, I just haven't really been seeing either of those. And so, but if you do see them, I would kind of put them in that version of, yeah, they're still a chip, but they're definitely a better quality. One that I would say is really just marketing is the Stacy's. I'm going to kind of go back to that. It's the Stacy's pita chips. I actually just pulled up an article that I wrote several years back. I'm going to link to it in our episode notes. And I had the Stacy's pita chips, the Simply Naked, in the header image. They have done a beautiful job of marketing those to us that they make us feel like, oh, but it's like the naked pita chips. It's the Stacy's, and it's still just those are essentially. I would even put them a notch lower than regular potato chips or corn chips because the potato is just the potato sliced and fried. The pita chips, that's just processed white flour pressed into that pita chip and then fried. So it's even like a notch lower. There's also like multi-grain versions of those. They're still not really any better because they're still mostly white flour. So those, again, kind of like if you love them, have them, but just think of them as a chip. Don't think you're doing anything better. The same with like a lot of the different kind of like multi-grain, Tostitos or Scoops or something like that. They have a notch more, but not super better. So when we look at, well, what are some of the others that are better? You could argue that veggie chips could actually be real vegetables that you slice and dip. And when we talk about dips, there's so many different things there too. And I'll link to some things I've done on dips. But if you're going to be using vegetables and you're going to call sliced vegetables your chip alternative, it's probably going to help if you're dipping them into something because then it's at least going to feel like it's like a vehicle for dipping, just like chips are. And so in that case, some of my favorite dips, I would say, of course, something like guacamole. I think you can't go wrong with like a creamy dip that you're making with Greek yogurt. And as I mentioned before on this podcast, I love full fat Greek yogurt, not the fat free. If anything, do the 2% Greek or even full fat if you're going to do a dip where you're just having some of that. And so whatever type of a creamy dip you're going to make, it could be a ranch style dip. It could be a spinach and artichoke dip. If you're using that full fat Greek yogurt, the flavor, the texture of it is just really satisfying. I love things like baba ganoush, where we're using that with like roasted eggplant. There's hummus, of course, but then you can also kind of up the game on boosting nutritional value with hummus by making something like a beet hummus. So there's just a lot of dip options. Of course, if someone even just likes something like salsa or something that's just kind of like fresh vegetables in there, made loosely into a dip. So there's a whole bunch of different options. I had a friend of mine who told me that he made like a white bean hummus and he put a little bit of like either truffle or chipotle in it. And that was sort of the snack that he made for him and his wife, through the week. So whatever you're dipping into, we want to try to keep that as nourishing as possible. But I would say, I didn't want to not say that just vegetables sliced, we can call those veggie chips. It's possible. Again, I think dipping them into something helps us feel better about calling it a chip. And then thinking about the way you cut them can also make it feel a little bit more interesting and a little bit more like a quote chip than just like you're eating raw sliced vegetables. And so there's a restaurant that I love here in New Orleans. It's El Gato Negro, and they have, you can do like chips and queso or chips and guacamole, chips and salsa. But instead of chips, they give you the option of cucumber chips. And I believe they call them cucumber chips on the menu. And it's, extra couple of bucks, and you can get that in addition to or instead of the regular chips. And they slice them. They use one of those crinkle cut slicers. So they aren't just regular sliced cucumbers, but they're kind of the crinkle cut. And then they sprinkle a seasoning on them. So you could sprinkle a little bit of sea salt. You could sprinkle a little bit of whatever type, if there's like a Cajun seasoning or lower sodium Cajun seasoning, whatever you like on there that just kind of like adds a little bit of like something to it. But you can do that with cucumbers. I like things like red peppers or yellow peppers, like sliced, using that for dipping. You can use, of course, I like cauliflower. I'll do zucchini or squash and just have all that for dipping. So you can also lightly grill any of those, and they work really well. To me, having a grilled vegetable platter and still putting that with dips, to me, that grilled vegetable platter feels more appealing than just raw vegetables. Some people will do carrots or celery. To me, that kind of feels like, I mean, if you love carrots or celery, there's nothing wrong with that, and especially if you love them dipped into something. But I think those others I mentioned are kind of what I tend to gravitate towards more first. And then, of course, if it's grilled, I really love that, to kind of have that as a dipping option. So vegetables, yes, of course, you can use those and call them a veggie chip. Beyond that, you can make kale chips. I'll include a recipe for kale chips in the show notes. It's pretty simple. It's not hard at all. One of the key ingredients that, just try it, is nutritional yeast. If you haven't used this before, it is kind of a flake. It's like a yellow flake. It gives kind of like a nutty cheesiness, and it's a flake like it's a powder, kind of almost like a dry flaky powder, sort of like it's used as a Parmesan replacer, like a vegan Parmesan replacer. It has like a nutty cheesiness to it. So that is often one of the key ingredients for something like kale chips. And so if you see that in there and you're like, that sounds weird, nutritional yeast, just try it. It's also something good that you can just, sprinkle on vegetables or put into something if you were doing, I don't know, like a hot spinach and artichoke dip, like maybe a little of the nutritional yeast. It kind of adds like, the umami flavor that kind of just like enhances it. The nutritional yeast kind of has that benefit. Other benefits of it is very, very high in B vitamins, and it's a decent source of protein as well. So I'll put the link for kale chips in there that you can make yourself. They're not hard to make at all. And the first time I made them, I mean, it was years back, and my husband was like, seriously, like, don't make me eat these. And then like he ate like the whole bowl of them. So it's not hard to make. It's just one of those things that it's habit, and like, are we taking the time to do it, or is it easier to buy them? So if you're looking on store shelves, the brand that I see, there's two brands that I see the most. There's others, of course, but the two brands I see the most, one is Brad's and the other is Rhythm. The Rhythm, they used to call it Rhythm Superfoods, but now I think they just call it Rhythm or Rhythm Foods. And so the website is rhythmfoods.com, and it's just RHYTHM foods.com. And then the other is the Brad's website is bradsplantbased.com. So on these, I'll start with, I think the Brad's has centered themselves mostly on things that are sort of like a kale or kale chip. The very first time I had their product was specifically kale chips. And they have a lot of different varieties. They have just regular plain, like sea salt type. And then they have, I think they call it like vampire killer or something like that. They have one that's like cheese it up. They're all vegan though. And so if they're using cheese, it's usually going to be something like the nutritional yeast. But the Brad's crunchy kale that we've got. So for example, an ounce of it is 80 calories. And so about half of what we talked about of like the regular potato chips or some of those other like pseudo healthier potato chips. Total carbs 6, the fibers 2, and then the proteins 4. And so that protein, so the first ingredient's kale. So also going back to those veggie chips that I was like, they're using powdered spinach or beetroot powder, a little bit of tomato paste to add color to what's otherwise just potato starch chips and veggie straws. And they make us feel better, like about giving them to like kids or whatever, but they're still just potato chips with a dab of color. Those were the ones that we had potatoes and potato starch, and then like the oils and cornstarch and some sugar and salt, all of those ingredients first. And then we had, spinach powder, beetroot powder, etc. So reverse that. The very first ingredient on the Brad's kale chips is kale. And then there's sunflower seeds, some lemon juice, a little bit of miso in there. It has the nutritional yeast that we talked about. It has a bunch of different spices. And so these form like these clusters, these like really crunchy clusters that are way better than any that I've made at home. And so the pre-purchased, like the store-bought kale chips, admittedly, they're not cheap. Like they're not at all. And so if you were to say, well, I could make it myself at home, you can. The recipe I'm going to link to y'all is just super basic. It's not nearly as delicious as these are. But we could always kind of pull up other types of, pull out some of these ingredients and try it and experiment. So what I'll post is going to be just really basic. If I find a recipe that kind of rivals, that looks to me like it might rival something like what's in the Brad's, I'll also link to that maybe for like a better, even like, enhanced version of it. But we're paying the money for if we pay the money for this, it's given us that stronger crunch, the like deeper flavors, way more than what we're typically going to be doing of kale chips at home. But the difference is when we're saying, okay, are these giving me my veggies or actually a serving of veggies? The answer is yes. And so this little 2-ounce bag is made with a half pound of real vegetables. So 8 ounces of vegetables is going into this bag. And so when we are looking at, is it really giving me some vegetable benefit? 100% it is. So I kind of read out to y'all, okay, the calories are half, the carbs are really low, the fiber, the protein, but even more important than those like positive, like good looking numbers on the nutrition label, even more benefit is what you're not going to see on this label of the nutrients, the phytonutrients from those vegetables that you're getting, just like you would get from vegetables in the produce section. And so these are also, I should mention, these aren't fried. They're versions of like kale and stuff like that, unlike the sweet potato chips or stuff like that. They're not fried. So any nutrients in here, they're basically just air dried until they're crispy. So you're really retaining the nutritional benefits there. So the Brad's brand has all types of things. They have the crunchy kale chips, all different flavors. They have something called Caesar salad snack, or it's a salad snack. I think they have different variations of flavors. And I got the one that was a Caesar type, and it was really good. It's had a lot of the same types of ingredients as the kale chips, but also things like garbanzo beans, different types of cabbages, some apple cider vinegar. It actually tasted like really good. And the person at the checkout had also already tried them and liked them. And then they have some little veggie crisp. They're like a little cracker that is mostly carrot and flax seeds are the first 2 ingredient. Also chia seeds, flax meal. So all of those are under the Brad's umbrella. So that's one great option. The other brand I mentioned, the Rhythm Foods, they also have kale chips that are good and kind of different varieties of that. And so it'll just depend on like what your store has, or if you're buying it from the product website, you can do different like variety packs and stuff. But I would say this brand that we're talking about now is my favorite because they have so many different varieties. So they do have kale chips. They have cauliflower bites, and their cauliflower bites are like freeze or like air dried cauliflower that is super, super like crunchy, just like, I mean, it's really crunchy. I would say it's as crunchy or more than those sea salt kettle chips that I'm always talking about. So super crunchy. It's all cauliflower. They have them often at Costco in the larger bag for just the sea salt. They have a bunch of different flavor varieties like white cheddar and others. They have beet chips that'll either be plain or they have some with sea salt. And again, they're just basically air dried beets, and they're basically like what they refer to as low temperature crisp. So they're not even they're not heated. That they would still be considered, they're still like that super nutrient dense vegetable source because they're not getting raised to like high temp. That would be they would be losing any of the nutritional value there. So they have beet chips, they have carrot sticks that are like little, just that carrot sticks, super crunchy, regular sea salt flavor. And then they also have mushroom crisp that have different flavor varieties. I got the fire roasted and I love them. So the rhythm foods, like I said, it's probably my favorite. They have the kale, the broccoli, the mushrooms, the carrots, the beets, all different options there. I would say the biggest drawback on these is as we've talked through the progression of the Costco kettle chips to the regular, sort of pseudo better for you potato chips to the high low Dorito alternatives or the I-1 cheese puff and Cheetos, all the way to the Brads and then the rhythm foods, ounce for ounce, the nutritional value, the nutritional quality, the ingredient quality, the nutritional quality, all of that got better. The price point also exponentially goes up. So, and a lot of times the price point may not be so noticeable. I mean, if you're talking about buying like a quart of, I don't know, full fat Greek yogurt compared to like a quart of regular yogurt to make your dips with, it's not going to be that significant and you may not be using it that much. But on something like this, the smaller 2 ounce bags, may be, $4, $5 or more, and it could be gone in one sitting or two. And that's for the veggie ones. The other chips that I mentioned, kind of that high low or the I-1, they're sort of in the middle. And then those regular potato chips, of course, like super inexpensive. So a lot of times we try to see, if we're going to, we often think, okay, if we're going to try to eat healthy, it costs more. But if we're going to make our own meals from scratch with that lean protein, the veg, and we were to compare that meal we're making from scratch to maybe what would be at a drive-through combo meal, it often, we can make it for the same price or less at home by using, real whole ingredients that we're preparing ourselves. In this case, it is absolutely true. As they get better for us nutritionally, the price does go up. So it is one of those things that we've got to weigh, like, how worth it is this for me? And then going back to that conversation of we can make them ourselves. We may not like them as much, or it may not be as convenient, but there are still ways that we can do it ourselves at home. And the bottom line on all of these is if you're having just a little bit at time to time of something like potato chips, like me with those that I keep talking about, the sea salt kettle chips, just have what you love. If this is something you're having on the regular and you're looking for a healthier option, then kind of, weigh the pros and cons of these different ones that we talked about. And, what does your store have? What do you have access to? Or what are you willing to take the time to make at home? And then always it's going to come to when you are looking at something on the shelf, those first few that I talked about that make us feel like we're doing something better, but they're really not. You've got to turn the package over. We can't buy what it's telling us on the front, or the picture that it's telling us that makes us think that we're getting something really healthy. We've got to turn it over, look at, yes, the nutrition facts, but especially looking at those ingredients. What's listed first? What does it have most of? Does it have anything wacky in there that we want to avoid? Is it really a nourishing snack that it might be pitching itself to be or not? But we can't believe the front. We've got to turn it over, look some of the numbers on that nutrition panel, and especially look at the ingredients. And I'll link to a couple of segments that I've done over the past couple of years on this topic and a NOLA.com piece from a couple of years ago, but a lot of the products are still in there, just to kind of give you some ideas too. And I will post a recipe for kale chips, and I can't promise they're as good as the ones that are in the packages, but it's definitely going to be a lot more cost effective ultimately to make them that way. So I know that with this episode, I don't have kind of like that silver bullet, that magic bullet for you that says, all right, these look and taste like that chip you love, and they're giving us like the nutritional value of veggies. Like we're not there yet. Maybe one day, but not yet. If it's truly giving you the nutritional benefits of veggies, you're going to know it's veggie heavy. If it looks and tastes as delicious as a potato chip or a regular corn chip, it's probably a variation of a potato or corn chip. But hopefully with this, it helps you kind of think through kind of the different options. There's like regular old potato chips. There's the stuff in the middle that may be higher protein, higher fiber, some of those with pea protein or almond flour and stuff. And then there's those that are truly veggies. So let me know what you think. If you try some of these and you like them, or if you have others that you're like, hey, you didn't cover this and this one's my favorite, always let me know about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you'd like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com. You can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.